Welcome back to a new episode with the Old Bandicoots. We're talking of, do today's brands have a much harder job in attracting attention? Let me go back to the 80s or the 90s where there was this massive hoarding or billboard exactly opposite a major station in Bombay. And it had a close up of a man's crotch with the VIP underwear. And it was literally in your face because as soon as people stepped out of the station, there it was. So it attracted attention, no doubt, but it also seemed highly offensive, especially to women who were walking out. Today, when you have a choice of millions of channels, hundreds of posts, or thousands of posts on social media that you're navigating, has it become difficult for advertisers to even cut through the clutter? So, what are the implications, Narayan?
See, it was known as shock value. It was not for every brand, but some brands that chose to go down that path knew what they were doing. They wanted results in return. There have been any number of these kind of sexual innuendo related kind of ads probably throughout history and internationally. They have
Right.
always been there, whether showing cleavage or in this case somebody's crotch oversized. It must have been quite a bit shocking to on a working day for people coming out of a railway station to dip their heads and having to see something like that. These shock value ads were supposedly there to draw your attention to the brand. The brand was telling you, please remember me. And then somehow that converted to sales. From the advertising agency's point of view, see, I gave you attention. I made people talk about you. I made tongues wag. And therefore, I've done my job. And then your marketing and sales are, of course, your problem. And it was not always necessarily sexual. For example, in the late 80s, when Saffola as a brand burst into the scene, suddenly for the first time, I think you saw somebody, the husband having a heart attack in a TV commercial. And then that woman got agitated, and then Saffola was introduced and all that. Many people from that generation did, because if there was one aspect of life where no bad things happened, it was advertising.
Yes.
Advertising was a happy, comfortable, only joyful kind of a world in which people
Yeah.
sang songs, they cracked jokes, and happy things only happened, and everything ended correctly, and all that. And suddenly, this oil bursts in and says, "Listen, your husband can have a heart attack." And they showed
Yeah.
some. It was a bit shocking to see. My God, what is this? This advertising, or what is this? A documentary, or what is it? And now that brand has successfully placed itself as one of the better brands. With time, the brand has moved on to take on heart-related cases, running marathons, and getting into other kind of related activities. Attention that I want to draw upon is the fact that it was launched with a short time. The fact that it showed something in the very beginning was unusual, striking, and kind of fear inducing. The thing about these kind of shock treatments, or what we call shock value ads, is that they have to be used with some restraint.
Yeah.
If you were to stand on top of a house in a village street or in a small town street and then beat your chest and drum and shout and blow a trumpet and all that, of course people will take notice, and they'll look at what's going on there. Who's this shouting? Why is this guy on top of a house? All that happens. But if you started going there every day and started blowing a trumpet and beating a drum and all that, then people will of course take you for an idiot, who though it's that same ass again doing his stuff. Therefore, the shock treatment only works when you use it with restraint and immediate. If they had continued doing those ads where right through 90s and right through 2000, if they had kept on showing husbands having heart attacks, that brand would have gone nowhere. They made their point and then quickly moved on to the positive aspects of the brand. But by that time, I knew what Safala was. I knew what the red heart on that can meant. And then they said, listen, this is how you can prevent, and this is how. And then they went into softer stories like, look at your husband trying to eat the samosa unnecessarily on the side of the road. They were much, much softer stories. And the point probably I'm trying to make is that shock value has its use. If you can just do it, get out of it. Used sensibly, it's fine. I recently saw an ad as recent as maybe within the last 10 days, the Spuma campaign using the Indian women cricketers, for example. And they keep using the word balls. It takes balls to win the match, and it takes balls to score a six and all that. So there is an inbuilt provocation that today's women are of a different breed, and maybe the association is there in the fact fact that I can use words like that. I could have said guts and I could have said something else, but I'm saying balls and I'm doing it brazenly. I'm doing it because today I can, and today's women are different and all that kind of stuff. But let's assume that it's there to put across some attitude of bravado and achievement and brazenness and in your faceness and all that, and therefore it is presumably the brand is for women like that. Fair enough, it's fine, but I wonder if it is all that shocking at all. Is it really provocative or offensive or anything? I'm not sure. I don't think so at all. In fact, considering that maybe within the last year or so there has been another interesting product called a ball trimmer of all things, which shaved off the unwanted hair in the nether regions for men. That was liberally using balls as a play on words and all that. Maybe the first two times people saw it and said, "Oh wow, look at that," but it had relevance. I mean, there's no reason why, at some point you had to smile at the usage of those kind of words, because I mean, it was a ball trimmer. What the hell? I mean, how are you going to mask that? So, and therefore it was more playful than offensive. So, to probably return to your question, it is damn hard to draw attention getting ads these days, because practically people have seen anything and everything. Between all the corners of the internet, you have seen anything and everything. What
Right.
is going to be so shocking as a visual is going to be so difficult to find. In an earlier episode, we had talked about that famous Milind Soman ad, who was there with his then girlfriend Madhu Saprayan, and they were both naked, surrounded by a snake
Python
or
or
constrictor
a
python
boa constrictor,
of some
whatever.
kind, tongues wagging, and said, "Oh, look at that!" And in a simpler world, in a print-driven world, it worked and did its job.
I
And
think
I
you
do
make
think
an interesting point about attention not being consistent. It's like you can't keep water boiling at one temperature all the time and then expect that people will look at it and then say, wow. Or attention is a bit like happiness. You can't be happy all the time, you can't be attentive all the time. So there is a point at which the brand has to probably get the attention and in the right context. I think the point you made about the Puma shoes is spot on because it uses attention. It may cut through because of the use of the phrase, but it is not taking the brand further at all. It is not. Are they trying to say that women should have balls in order to get into a sport that is dominated by men? And you have women wrestlers who are doing just as well. You have women doing fabulously well in badminton. And you have various sports where women are excelling. So even weightlifting. So it's not as if this is now just the province of men. So to take one sport, which is cricket, which requires more skill than strength, I'm wondering if that could have been better thought through, because that's precisely where we started. Is it attention for the sake of it, or is it attention that actually advances the brand's positioning in the market? In the 80s, you got the attention because of two naked people, which was absolutely at that point something not seen. But today, exactly as you mentioned, the internet has made us casual about a whole lot of things that we see. So I think attention divorced from what the brand benefits are. But when you break into the public conscious, if you say that this is the only thing that I need to stand out in social media and I need to stand out in the advertising, and that is the first thing that I'll aim for, I think they have to think a little harder and look at the context. Cadbury's came into Diwali and then started giving out what used to be traditionally Indian sweets. And then they started giving out packs of Cadbury's for Diwali, which has now become another massive stream for them. But they didn't at any point try to offend. They made it a part of the festivity. And that is where I think the real strength of wonderful communication. And it's not in your face, it's not trying to offend you, it's not trying to say things which are simply to attract attention. So I think brands should work on exactly the same kind of principle, that attention is okay as a kind of.
wholesome, effective advertising,
Yeah.
which caters to the many other human emotions besides sex and fear. The shorthand way of creating a sensational brand or an attention seeking brand is to rely on these shorthands of either something sexual or something fearful. Point is, in today's world, the sex business doesn't seem to work anymore, because there is I think people are blasé about it, and no, you can't even shock a grandfather or grandmother these days about anything to do with sex. I mean, It's all out there,
Yeah.
it's all been seen. And what is there
Right.
so surprising, shocking about stuff anymore? I really don't understand. So it's probably
Right.
difficult to do that. But fear, yes, fear, like I was talking about Safola, in that case, it was relevant because it was connected to a real thing. It was not just fear mongering, just for that. You should, no brand should really go there. But
Yeah.
even today, it's a valid human emotion. It is a genuine human emotion. It is possible to use that. The point is, there are many other human emotions that are possible where you can get your attention and build a brand that probably may appear to be a slower burn approach, but it has always worked. If you have something to offer humans in terms of their needs, their emotions, and satisfy them, that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
Cadbury's doesn't need to show simply clad man or woman. Social causes, of course, they are emotive, they are highly charged, but they can reward you with a kiss or a slap in the face. We don't know that. And therefore, sensitive social issues, and see if I can put my brand in that kind of a dicey context and see if I can pull off some victories over there. Good luck to
Yeah.
you, but yeah, but that is option. Otherwise, the straight and narrow path of exploring a lots of human emotions like love, friendship, joy, gifting. There are so many other. I mean, there are infinite emotions to express, to own, and to stake
Which
your claim
exactly.
and to associate your brand with.
Which I think even in classrooms, Narayan, you have these kids who first think that either by dressing differently or by talking in a way that others will take note of me or saying things that will offend some of the others, they quickly discover that it has its downsides as well. Whereas the one who persists with a point of view where they are either helpful or they manage to say something in a way that ensures that the rest of the class listens and is a reasoned argument, they have a much better chance of succeeding in the long term. So,
Probably the way advertising is demonstrably different from other walks of life is this need for excitement, which probably, if
yes,
you're in civil engineering or in something, you probably don't need excitement. You probably need to construct that bridge properly. Your
yeah,
CA or somebody, you really don't want him to get excited. You want him to do a very boring job. You want your bankers to be pretty boring and do their manager
yeah,
funds properly,
exactly.
carefully, and with all seriousness and all the rest of that.
Right,
But somehow advertising goes along with excitement, entertainment,
right.
make something happen to me, and therefore need for a certain kind of stimulation that we have to give from the advertising side, and that is expected of us from the consumer side all over the world, is something like a cross that we bear. And therefore, you have to get folks excited. You can't commit that sin of boredom. In the need for excitement, how far can you go, and which is the borders where you probably should be aware that there is a border at all?
Yeah.
I think those
Yeah.
are the areas you maybe there's no real way of knowing that, and maybe in a real brand's life, you have to cross that border now and then.
And like shampoo ads have been told very often that there is no way that any woman's hair would be as silken and as glossy and as with so much volume. But unless you show that, you're not going to get a customer to actually think of the shampoo at all. So exaggeration, I think, is one of the facts of life where you can't get away. So today, when we go into a restaurant, it's no longer enough to get just a plate of rice or a thali. Every restaurateur is looking at seeing how that plate experience of how you see the food and how it arrives on your table and how you serve is all enhanced. These are again part of what attention, yes, but there's also an enhancement to the whole experience that brands are now trying to do. It's not enough to just hand it over. Way the food is plated, that has become an art form.
And take a picture of it also these days.
Yes, that's also the demand of social media because that's the attention bit. Overall, there has been an increased awareness of the need to drive attention and get it. And so the barriers or the hurdles to that, it's like your high jump was once at 2 feet and you just jumped across and you had no problems at all. It's as if you have to do a pole vault every time now in order to get attention. In every single field, I think it has become harder and harder. And so advertising is no different. The problem is that an ice cream will remain an ice cream. A gold chain will remain a gold chain, and the reasons for buying it will remain the same. So, how within that extremely limited context can you still flog attention? Will, I think, be the single defining factor of advertising even in the future.
In fact, that is the very job of advertising, whether it was 100 years ago or now or in the future. The job of advertising is to do precisely that. How do I make
Yeah.
something exciting, different, and solving something for you? or rewarding you in some manner. The challenges are the same, and therefore the better advertising people will always be the ones who find a way out by being interesting and by pushing the boundaries of what it means to be provocative. I can be provocative without offending, and sometimes you will cross the line, sometimes you won't. If you don't cross the line sufficiently at all, you end up being boring. If you go over the line, you end up being offensive. And therefore, this is
Controversial.
a constant play that you need to do. And this constant need for entertainment, enhancement, exaggeration, as you called it, is part and parcel of advertising, because at the end of the day, people out there are not fools. They discount the fact that advertising said that. They already know that if this detergent claims that your clothes can be so white that it will make the other person go blind and all that, they know that that's not really true. But what they're saying is, if they are saying that much, probably it will make it sufficiently white, right? So people know how to discount your messages anyway.
Yeah.
Therefore, you can take the benefit of people's intelligence for granted, and in a humorous way, feel free to exaggerate, because you know that it will be discounted. And if you can somehow do it with some taste, then you're doing your job of being interesting. Fevicol has been doing it for donkey's years, right?
Wonderfully.
And there's no fear in it, and there's no sex in it. There is no none of these things that we started out by saying, and yet these kind of advertising can be very, very successful. There are so many other emotions to explore and be entertaining.
So advertising is a bit like that cousin who spins all these completely weird stories, but because he or she is there at the table and everyone discounts what they're saying, but they're still fun to have around. They're still the life of the party. That at the end of the day is the role of advertising as well. But like you said, there are ways where you don't need to prey on sex and the other innuendos all the time. There is fear, there is love, there are other emotions that you can exploit in very interesting ways. And at the end of the day, that's the job for us. See you around the next time. And thank you for listening. Subscribe. And if you have a point of view, please feel free to engage. See you next time.